Now, please welcome President and CEO for Encore, Ben Erwin, in discussion with Skift Meetings Editor-in-Chief, Miguel Neves.
Well, hello. How are we doing?
Nice to see you again.
Post-lunch, delicate time slot, but I think we're here for a fun conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Ben is President and CEO of Encore. Who has worked with Encore before? Can I get a show of hands?
All right, thank you very much.
Who's currently working with Encore at one of their events? All right, there you go. A few clients in the audience. So I want to start by going a little bit into the history of Encore.
Sure.
You merged all these brands. PSAV was kind of the big one a few years back.
Yep.
You kind of merged all these brands together. And you kind of have been going through this process of coming out from behind the scenes,
Yes.
right? IMEX, we have here in the photos, your break-free experience. You're much more kind of in contact with the planners. Whereas before, you used to have more of a relationship with the hotels, right?
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about that evolution.
Sure. So, look, the heart of Encore and the thing I'm so deeply passionate about is our teams and the people that make our business up. And they're this beautiful blend of technical expertise with kind of service, hospitality orientation. But I think by default, that led to a culture of folks that were more comfortable being dressed in black, more comfortable being behind the scenes, hopefully more focused on delivering for all of you in your events, although I know we can be better at that. But what this has really been is we've watched the industry evolve, is I think an opportunity for, while we love the relationships we have with our hotels and our venue partners, being more focused as we've grown with how can we connect with our customers, how can we be more focused on the planner community, how do we bring them into more of our conversations. And I think we realized, and again, some of the earlier speakers talked about what you learn through tough times, COVID, or Reggie talked about Cvent and kind of his experience through COVID. I think one of the things we realized was there was an opportunity for us to be more visible, whether that's in industry events, whether that's telling our story, but I think most importantly, trying to find a way to connect more intensely with our planner community and our customer base to find ways to help them more consistently. And I think that's what's been behind us trying to be more present, knowing that there's things we need to address. But if you could get to know Encore and the people of Encore and you could have a personal relationship with that business, the ways that we see you, the places that we work with you, should be benefits that accrue to the meeting planner.
What was the driver behind that? It was, you're very happy having these deals with hotels. You've got most of the market done.
Yeah.
What was the real driver that made you want to reach out to the planners?
Look, I think, so my Encore journey started 9 years ago, and I was not in the events industry. I candidly hadn't thought a lot about it, but I fell in love with it day one. And it was the people, it was our teams, it was many of you that I know in this room. It was an industry and a community that I wanted to be a part of. And when I got this job as CEO in the middle of the pandemic, I think there was just an opportunity to know the voices that had been in my head and been so valuable weren't necessarily our hotel partners or our venue partners, while they are wonderful voices to have in my head, but it had been planners, it had been our customers, it had been opportunities to find ways to help them solve a problem. And I think it was just this freedom that came being at that incredibly vulnerable moment to try to think about how can we do more. Yes, we have the luxury of being a large business, but I think it was just an opportunity to be much more intentional around who's paying our bills, who are our customers, and how can we pull them into a conversation that's going to make our organization better for the industry in general.
Interesting. You've talked about the industry being 75% more complex now than it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So it's not going to surprise any of you. One of the things that customers want to talk to me about most frequently is price and how expensive.
We'll get to that.
How expensive everything is. And so your point around, I think, just this 75% more complicated is the world has come back differently after the pandemic. And we all know that and we feel it. But if we look across our business, small events, medium-sized events, large events, and we look at what's going into these productions, the technology you can see, which is part of it, but all of the technology you can't see behind the screen, It is 75% more complicated today. Higher-end technology is being used across all of those event spectrums than it was in 2019. That's an incredible change when you think about what's going into these events, what are the experiences you're trying to create, what's the cost to do that in a world where we've certainly seen inflation in all parts of our lives, but the complexity and the teams that have to go onto these events, trying to produce more complicated events, price is certainly part of that story, but it's a real trend. When we talk to people about how's the world different, it is a different place today in a relatively short period of time because of everything we're trying to do in the space when we pull communities together.
Okay. Well, you mentioned pricing, so let's jump into it. I'm sure there's a few questions to the audience about pricing, so let's get into this. It seems to be an issue. I mean, we had an article we released last week that somebody was charged $3.5 grand for 2 days for a TV screen and a power drop.
Yeah.
And they named Encore.
Yep.
Yep. Do you feel that that pricing is fair?
Look, I think there's two pieces of pricing when we talk about it internally. I think the first, which you're referencing, which I will certainly address, is like the absolute price that our customers are having to pay. The second is around just the consistency of that price. And I hear about both of those things, and we're working on both of those things. So one, how can we think about the absolute price that's paid and the value that's there? Look, Encore and our business model, being partners with these hotels, is never going to be lowest cost, but we have to make sure we're bringing value to our customers. So how can we do that through what we're offering them, the prices we're charging, the experience, the service that they get? And that's going to have to work. And if it doesn't, our business is going to be challenged. And so that value focus is really intentional in our business. And so we are looking at prices that we can actually reduce. We are thinking about labor and are there ways to be more efficient so that you're not necessarily having to pay for all of the human capital that goes into producing these events that might show up in a equipment charge. That's one. The second is just around the consistency. If I show up in Boston and I use Encore and I pay one price, and 2 days later I do something very similar in a very similar market like Chicago where I live, and I pay something different, that doesn't feel right. So how do we make sure that we're using our experience, our knowledge, and our ability to share information across the business to take that inconsistency out, which is also a source of frustration.
Okay. Well, when a planner, they book the destination, they book the hotel, and then the hotel has Encore as the AV provider. What do you want them to feel when they see that Encore name?
First, I hope they think, I love their people, because I do believe for everybody in here, if you got to know the Encore team, you would love the Encore team. And so it's how do we bring that to life? And the next thing is, I want you to have confidence it's going to go perfectly. And that consistency of experience is also very intentional. And so if I look at the things we're investing in as a business, and again, what we believe, it's great to say we want to get closer to our customers and our planners. But that's going to be best achieved by if they know someone and feel comfortable they can interact with you, so that personal relationship. And secondly, they have confidence that the experience is going to go well. And ultimately, over the long term, that's what we have to do. So all of the investment in how do we learn from other industries around service delivery, consistency, talent, training. I could speak for a long time around what we're doing around development of our teams. It's been a huge, expensive focus to rebuild. Our business went from really small to quite large seemingly overnight. We hired 10,000 people back into our business over the course of 18 months. How do you hire, train, retain, and develop 10,000 people over the course of a year and a half? You have to get really good at systems and tools. I love the sessions earlier that were talking about generational change. Like the workforce in our industry today is very different than the workforce that was in the industry 10 years ago. So how can you use tools? How can you use badging? How can you almost gamify that development so that we're putting our teams through consistent experience? And as that builds, our service scores should improve. And I think if you look at one of the investments we've made, and we spent a lot of time listening to customer feedback, in the middle of 2021, probably the worst moment in terms of our ability to deliver for customers, because the world was full, bright, and our teams were still scrambling to get into a place to be most successful. We invested in a system with Medallia, who's the backbone behind all of the hotel surveys and airline surveys that I know you all fill out. to hear kind of how that experience is going. And we ask about a bunch of different parts of the customer journey. We get 20,000 responses a year now telling us what's working, what's not. That then informs that training. And so I think there's a lot of things around both of those. I want you to feel like you know the people and like the people that you get to know so that you can celebrate them. And I want you to have confidence that it's going to work, your event's going to be successful, and our team has your back.
If you have any questions, make sure you put them through the app. We'd love to see those questions. I want to stay a little bit with the pricing and the exclusive thing, and we'll go through the service level, I think, a little bit later. You're in 2,200 properties.
Yep.
80% of your business is hotels.
Yes.
And I think a lot of planners in the room have this perception that you have a lot of exclusivity at these properties, that you're saying you can only work with Encore if you come to these properties. But you're saying that's not accurate, that it's actually part of the deal, that you deal with hotels, et cetera, and every property is different.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are a couple infrastructure services that would be similar to what you're saying in terms of if you show up in a property and we're doing rigging in that building, our teams are going to be supporting that service specifically. But when you think about the vast majority of what goes on across most of our properties, we're competing every day with outside companies to be able to support those events. And so while we're in-house, and that hopefully gives us a great opportunity to meet you earlier in the process, to know the space, be able to leverage the investment that we've made in teams and equipment, the relationships we have in that hotel to make it an easier buying experience, all of those things go into value that should hopefully have customers choosing us more often than not. But that is not without competition and not without our customers having the freedom to look at other providers. So if we're not doing our job, we're going to see our capture rate in those properties come down. If we are doing our job and we are meeting you earlier and we're solving for your event goals, we should see those capture rates move higher.
Okay, interesting. Now, you mentioned already the service levels. I think you mentioned being CEO Labor Day of 2020, if I believe. That was your first day?
Yeah. Let me tell you, you do not grow up dreaming of becoming an event CEO Labor Day of 2020. Yeah. That was not what I had in mind.
Take me to that moment. What was your first kind of message to your team as the new CEO?
Oh, to my team. That was better than my message to my wife, I will tell you that. That I might not say on stage. But look, I think to my team, it was a really scary time. So our business had gone from, call it $3 billion of revenue to literally we did $3 million of revenue in May of 2020. We had furloughed 10,000 people. I was arguing with my owners on why we needed to retain 3,000 people when we had no work for them. And my message was really around one, if we don't retain our teams, there will be no muscle memory to grow back from. It's going to be painful, but we have to have something to grow the business back from. The second thing was we should believe in whatever we're going to become. And I had confidence that events were going to come back. I had confidence that Encore was going to be a big business again. I didn't know how big and I didn't know when, but I knew those two things. And I also knew the strength of our business was our teams. And so we leaned hard into it. And so my message to them was, I want to be the company that if you're in this industry, where you want to work. And so it was all the things that we could do around how do we build a culture that people want to be a part of, a culture we're proud to be a part of, and that became a huge part of the rallying cry. And so we used those months where there wasn't a lot of work to focus on how could we build a business for the future that we would be more proud of. And very few CEOs have that moment to go back in time. You ask them on stages like this, if you could go back and start your company over again, what would you do differently? And it's a purely hypothetical question. But we had that moment. You had this really big business with incredible people at the heart of it, a great human capital muscle, and you could say, what do we want to be about? And what we said is we want to be about great people. We want to be a place that everyone wants to work. We want to be a great place to work for all. And those became the things we invested in.
And now you've been named a great place to work 3 years in a row.
11
locations.
3 years in a row, yes, here in the US, which we're incredibly proud of. And for the first time ever, in all of the geographies around the world that were eligible, we got that certification this year.
Are you able to scale that? I mean, I saw a question earlier about the junior staff in
Yeah.
hotels and a concern there. Is that helping you scale that service level across the company?
For sure. Like, if we have the best talent, we're going to do a great job for all of you. And so the focus on culture for us has been, one, like, if we're going to work in a business, you want to work in a place that you enjoy. But also, I want to work in a business that everybody wants to be a part of, that you feel like you can grow your careers in this incredible industry. And so I see this question around, like, what are you doing around your junior staff? Go back to, we're hiring 10,000 new people, all of varied backgrounds. How do we invest in their development so that we're bringing the competency levels of all of them higher? And we've done that, and I alluded to it a little bit around, service level 100, 200, 300, technical production 100, 200, 300. How do you gamify that so that the younger staff that are being drawn into this industry, and we need to do a better job telling our story, how do you bring them into the business? How do you give them that roadmap to develop their careers? And so we've changed how we promote people. We've changed how we give out pay raises, all around this idea of how can you create a pipeline for a newer generation workforce, that they're proud to be a part of something, everyone feels welcome, and they have a very clear idea of how they can get the training they need. We have very clear expectations on the training they have to be put on shows, and they can correlate that to career advancement, promotion, more pay, all the things that matter to them.
Okay. Now, we named the session kind of the future, bigger, brighter, future of AV. And what I meant by that is everybody I speak to about the future of events, they always talk about bigger productions. That seems to be sort of in everybody's mind. At the same time, Global DNC Partners just put out a planner survey a few days ago. And one of the things I noticed was because of the budget issues, AV was somewhere 70% of people said they at least sometimes cut back on AV. So that's an issue. Now, I know you just took on some more financing. You just did an announcement recently. You have a debt structure, a 7-year debt structure.
Yes.
But also Bloomberg had a report in March saying you were looking for $500 million and you had a $2.5 billion worth of debt that was coming up in the next few years. Those are some tricky numbers to navigate. How confident are you that you're ready financially and as a company to address the next few years?
I love that we're quoting Bloomberg at this event. I'm not sure I expected Bloomberg on stage today, but I love talking about it. Look, our business is large. We are owned by private equity. We do have a lot of debt on the business. What I will say is, having survived the pandemic, being able to raise $500 million of new equity, I think we're in a great spot to be able to invest. We have wonderful owners. They believe in putting every dollar of cash that we generate back into our organization, and we have done that every year that I've been here, and I think we'll continue to do that. And so, you started asking about AV budgets, and look, you all know, I don't need to tell you, we tend to happen late in the cycle. You've spent a lot of money on hotel and F&B and airfare, and we're finally talking about how do we put a room, an event, a production together, and that pressure is intense, and we feel it. And so what we've been trying to do and how we're partnering with our customers is, can we bring to life different options at every price point that they can take and visually go back to their stakeholders and try to create an environment that meets what they're trying to accomplish. And so, look, I do think when you talk about the future, this idea of immersive, I think, is real. Personalization is actually something I'm probably more passionate about in terms of the personalization you can give attendees. But it is going to take budget. But I think you can do it at every price point. It's just around prioritizing what's important. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say trying to move that conversation earlier in the process so you can be smarter with the dollars that you spend.
What about AI? Is that something that's on your mind in the future of Encore?
Look, I think to the conversation, Reggie was talking earlier as he runs out the back, which I will talk to him about. Look, I think we're focused on how we can use it for ourselves, right? Can we use it to be better recommenders of solutions to our customers? Can we use it in being more responsive to your requests, right? Hey, I need a proposal, I need a bid, I'm still waiting. Like, can we make our teams easier and smarter to work with in taking the information we have from you and being able to push that out there? So I think we will do that. Its application in the meeting space, I think it's going to be interesting to watch how it plays out. I mean, we've piloted things at a number of events around how can we use AI for audience sentiment. How can we use AI for some of the matchmaking that I was talking about earlier? Can we use that to make the event smarter as we're trying to solve for what our attendees are looking for? I think there's some really exciting ideas. I think it's just earlier in the process, but we are absolutely trying to find those ideas and using one of the benefits of being a big business, like using some of our customers who are willing to be on the front lines to kind of beta test these things. And I think you'll continue to see us do it until we find those products that truly make a difference for our customers.
You had a fun avatar experience also at IMEX, bring people into avatar cartoon versions of themselves.
People love the ability to see themselves as a Pixar character.
I love it. Yeah.
It is quite the experience.
We have a photo of you as a Pixar character.
That's
as well,
it.
which is great.
Yep, I looked way too much.
That's you on the right, I believe.
Yes, on the far right.
Yes.
I know. I thought I looked like the chef in Ratatouille. I was not excited. I don't know. I had a different image in my mind. Apparently, the machine did not.
Okay. So last question for you. Going back to working with planners. This was very focused on planners today. What's your advice to planners looking to get the most out of working with a local Encore team?
Well, the first thing I would say, when you talk to them, ask them if they've done the research on you. Ask them if they've used what we call our customer journey tool to learn about you. Because if they have, they should immediately be smarter in how they're talking to you. And my guess is, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but we're not as good as we could be. And our teams showing up when they talk to you, being smarter about how we can help you. One of the benefits of working with as many as the hands that went up is we see our customers lots of places. We should be able to use that experience to make your life better. And so the first thing I would say is I would ask them, have you done your work? Before you ask me for all the things you need from me, can you tell me you've at least done the part of the work that you can? When they have, our experiences are better. We have data that supports it. And I am more than happy for all of you and anyone else you come across to help me make that a cultural norm in our business. I think that's a very easy thing you can do that should lead to a better experience at that location.
Ben, I appreciate the candid, open conversation. I think everybody else in the audience does as well. Please, round of applause for Ben Erwin.
So, last thing, you guys wanted to have connections. All of you can find me on LinkedIn. Hit me up. I am more than happy to hear about your experiences, what could be better, or how we can be better for you. So please, I expect some LinkedIn connections. Yes, thank you very much.
They say that Ben sent you?
They do. Using my name helps. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We will now take a short break.